Hi everyone, it's me, Crafty Witch. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, consider subscribing. You'll want to hit that bell icon so you know when I upload, because I don't even know when I'm going to upload, so we can both be surprised together. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for sticking with me with how sporadic I am. I really appreciate it. I'm kind of like the Sasquatch of the witchy world. You never know when I'm gonna pop up. I'm very elusive in that way. But anyway, this video might really offend people, and that's not the intention. It might upset people. I'm hoping it will open the doors for discussion and maybe bring some awareness. I just really haven't seen anybody address it within the magical community, and I think it's a huge disservice to fellow practitioners by not addressing it. But like I said, it might offend folks, and it might stir up feelings, and it might trigger folks. And if that's the case, then that to me is an indication that there's work to be done within ourselves, our community, as a magical community. And I think it's really important to address it. Yes, I am a person of color, and I am First Nations. I am Cree and Ojibwe or Anishinaabe, but I'm also many, many other things. I'm German, I'm Irish, I'm Scottish, I'm English, I'm Welsh, I'm French, I'm Norwegian, there's Russian, there's Finnish, there's, oh my gosh, there's Greek, Italian, and Spanish. There is Korean. There is even like from India. There's all kinds of stuff. I am Romanian. Even got ancestors from like Pakistan. Like it's like mind blowing, but it's cool at the same time. I grew up only knowing about 7 of those things, and so those 7 I grew up knowing about, and then the rest I found out later through DNA, and it was just like, oh my gosh, that's pretty wild. Anyhow, where I live in a town that is, well, there's a lot of First Nations communities around this town, so it's a pretty, it's predominantly a Caucasian town, but I mean, there's First Nations, Métis people here, there's other Indigenous folks that live here, there's other people of color from other countries, and all kinds of folks that are here, but it's predominantly Caucasian. And what I'm going to address within our magical community, and I might come under fire for this, and so be it, but I think it's important that we talk about it. And it's specifically in regards to curses, hexes, what I've in the past referred to as bad medicine or bad magic. Not that magic in itself is good or bad, but it is a tool, just like a gun. A gun can be used to go and commit horrific crimes like school shootings, or it can feed a whole entire community throughout the winter when used responsibly, you know, with hunting and stuff like that, right? So a gun can nourish a whole community and sustain that community, especially through the winter time, or it can devastate a whole entire community. The gun itself is neither good nor bad, but it's the intention. So when I say bad medicine, bad magic, that's what I'm talking about, okay? Because guaranteed somebody out there is going to say, excuse me, but you know, it's neither good nor bad. I know that. But just for simplicity's sake, that's the terminology that I'm using. So when it comes to curses and hexes and that type of thing, a lot of magical practitioners, oh, now we got the grader going by cleaning the streets, never ends. A lot of people will express that, you know, you're far more likely to come under maybe psychic attack from doing like astral projection or spirit travel and stuff like that, than being deliberately attacked, magically speaking, from another practitioner. And some people don't even believe that exists. Some people will go, I don't believe in that. That's not part of my religion. It doesn't affect me. And that's fine. That's their belief, whatever. I do know for a fact it has, you know, hurt people that were devout Christians that didn't believe that there was even such thing as curses. And it was bad medicine sent from a First Nations person towards a Caucasian person, and then that Caucasian person ended up having to go find a indigenous healer, medicine person, whatever you want to call it, magical practitioner, to go and get what we call doctored, to go get healed of that, and that kind of thing. So it does happen regardless what your belief system is, what your race and culture is, really doesn't matter. If you have been targeted, you can get hurt by it. But what I find really Eurocentric, and I see this with a lot of, it could be books, it could be videos, whatever, and it's said by our Caucasian brothers and sisters within the magical community that the odds of something like that happening to you are like slim to none. It's very rare. It might happen, it could happen, but it's pretty rare. I want to counter that by saying that is such a Eurocentric and dismissive point of view, and it needs to stop, because there are so many magical practitioners, people of color that have grown up in cultures that have always utilized magic, witchcraft as part of their systems of being. Even if they didn't call it that, they would still utilize it, whether you're Indigenous, First Nations, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're African American, and maybe, you know, you're into hoodoo or whatever the case might be. Maybe somebody's into Santeria. Maybe somebody is into, or they're Italian and they're Strega, right? Maybe they're Chinese. But there's a lot of cultures around the world and a lot of belief systems that have incorporated magic or witchcraft as part of their being. Not everybody within that culture may practice it, but it's always been there and it still happens. And those curses, that bad medicine, that bad magic, it is far more common than you think. So when you are promoting this really Eurocentric view that, you know, it's so rare, it doesn't really happen, it's really dismissive of people like myself and others that are people of color that are within the magical community, that we've grown up seeing people get cursed or hexed or hit with bad medicine, and it's far more common than you even know. If you have grown up in a very atheist family, a very white community that maybe is predominantly Christian, you may never have had to encounter stuff like that. So to you, it might be something that's really kind of foreign. It might seem that it's alien to you because you've never had to deal with that growing up as a child. You've never been hit with it. And yes, children can get hit with bad medicine. Babies have died. Children have died from it. It does happen. It is real. And curses and hexes are real. And they, in certain circles within the magical community, are far more common than you give it credit for. And to me, that's a huge disservice. And it is also really Eurocentric because you are dismissing all these other magical systems, all these other forms of witchcraft. And that could be putting people even more at risk by being that dismissive about it. And it's not that I'm here trying to fearmonger anybody and go, oh, you know, the sky is falling and everybody's out there hexing everybody. That's not it at all. But you need to be aware. For instance, I would never, ever go to any powwow or ceremony within the Indigenous community without carrying really powerful magical protection to ward off the bad stuff. Because every powwow I've ever gone to, every ceremony I've ever gone to, and when it's ceremonies and there's different healers there, I will know which one is carrying something bad. And some of us know that. My own story, I got hit with bad medicine when I was very young. I was a teenager. I was a teen mom. I had gone to a medicine person. They said it was some guy that was really jealous and wanted to be with me, but I was already with my ex-husband. We had 3 children together. You know, by the time I was 20, we had our 3rd child, but this had happened. I would have been about 17, 18 years old when it happened. And they targeted my back. They wanted me crippled because what the healer told me was, if they couldn't be with me, they didn't want anybody with me. And they would rather see me be crippled and unable to walk than be with somebody else. I don't know who the frick that person even was. I was just this young girl, and I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, that's kind of scary. That's really messed up. A lot of curses and hexes, it comes from a place of jealousy or envy. Greed is another one, and anger. You might be dating somebody that they want to be with, or they might want to be with you. And if they're really sick and twisted, and if they can't be with you, they might want to make sure that your face becomes really disfigured or you become crippled so that nobody else would want you. If they can't have you, they'll make sure that nobody else wants you or can have you. It could be you got a new vehicle, you bought a house, you got a job. It could be you bought yourself a new pair of jeans. It could be something really small and trivial. They also don't even need to know you. They might just look at you. Maybe it's their first time seeing you. Maybe they think you're too loud, too obnoxious, and they're like, I'm going to knock this person down off their high horse. Who do they think they are? I'm going to teach them a lesson. There's so many different reasons, and it usually comes from places of envy, jealousy, anger, those spiteful, negative types of emotions. And it does happen, and it's far more common than you think. A lot of dancers at powwows will carry protection on them to protect them from bad magic, bad medicine, because our powwows, unfortunately, have become so commercialized. Now there's prize money, so you got to place, you know, and people are like after whatever it is. It could be $2,000, it could be $1,500, whatever it is, right? And they want to win that money, so they'll make sure that other dancers get hurt or maimed in the process when they carry the bad medicine on them. And you can tell which ones are carrying it too, because you could have, say, one dancer here, and then you'll have somebody, and they might come and zigzag, you know, kind of around them. And then next thing, this dancer might drop. And then you know they got hit with bad medicine. And you know it was this other dancer that done that. You know, stuff like that. It does happen. And it's more common than you think. They might just decide that they want to use you as a guinea pig to practice bad medicine on. That happens. And it's not just like First Nations or Indigenous communities that do this. I mean, there's curses and hexes in other cultural groups, and it tends to be like with people of color. They know about it. They've grown up with it, you know, whether, you know, it's somebody that does hoodoo, or maybe it's somebody of Asian descent and they know about, you know, these Chinese curses or whatever it is. It could be somebody that's Hispanic and maybe they've grown up with Santeria. There's all kinds of, you know, there's different types of magic that has spanned this world, the different types of witchcraft. You can call it magic, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, but different cultures have always embraced this and known this and have used it for good or bane, right? And when we have a lot of people who tend to be Caucasian dismiss that by saying like, oh, yeah, it's not common. The odds of that happening to you are like 1 in a million. You're doing a huge disservice, because if you happen to have somebody in your audience that maybe belongs to one of those communities, and maybe they belong to that community, maybe they got adopted out and they're just coming back into that community, they really don't know, you're setting them up for potential attack. They may not realize just how serious it can be. And that's when I say it's Eurocentric. It really is. It's so dismissive of people of color within the magical community and all of our collective experiences with regards to like curses and hexes and bad medicine or bad magic, whatever term you want to call it. To me, it means the same damn thing. And that is not right. And it's kind of the akin to somebody telling somebody of color, yeah, they said that to you, but it's not really racist. Like, you know, that's probably not what they meant. They, you know, the odds of somebody being racist towards you are like 1 in a million. Like, we just need to move on from this. Let's just, you know, focus our attention over here instead. You know, let's focus our attention on the psychic attack instead of the actual deliberate magical attack, because the odds are that'll never happen to you. You know, it's just that dismissive kind of like, you know, all these other cultural groups that have incorporated magic and witchcraft into, you know, their way of being for, you know, it could be for generations, it could be since time immemorial. It just dismisses all of that and throws it out the window because it's so Eurocentric. And the same even with the term traditional witchcraft. That really kind of bothers me too, because when people spout that term, you know, traditional witchcraft, really? Do you mean traditional British witchcraft? Traditional Irish witchcraft, traditional Scottish witchcraft? Do you mean traditional Italian witchcraft? Do you mean traditional Native American witchcraft? Do you mean traditional, I can go on and on and on, but do you see where it excludes people? Because the automatic assumption is so Eurocentric that it tends to gravitate always towards this blanketed viewpoint that traditional witchcraft is the British Isles and that's it. That's not it. But we need to be more aware of how we use that terminology, because it is Eurocentric. It dismisses all the other forms of traditional witchcraft. Could be from other cultures, other races, people of color. There's all different kinds of traditional African witchcraft. Is that what you mean? No. You mean traditional English witchcraft, or traditional Irish witchcraft, or traditional Welsh witchcraft, or traditional Scottish witchcraft. It's typically when people say traditional witchcraft, they have a very Eurocentric point of view. And that's for the whole magical community. It's so common that when people say, well, I'm a traditionalist or I'm a traditional witch, everybody just assumes, oh, traditional British, whatever it is over there, the British Isles. And there's nothing wrong with that form of witchcraft. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is wrong is when you take a term like traditional witchcraft, you are making it really Eurocentric by assuming your audience and everybody else that what it means is strictly British. And when I say British, I'm including the Irish and, you know, the UK, that form of witchcraft. And you are totally dismissing all the other forms of traditional witchcraft that are out there. So it's very Eurocentric in that regard. And so when somebody else might say, well, I'm a, traditional witch, and then somebody might say, oh, well, I do this, or I use a certain type of tool that might be associated, like, let's just say maybe a stang. And then this other traditional witch from another culture, another race, whatever, is saying, well, yeah, I'm a traditional witch, but yeah, we don't use that at all. We don't do those, whatever it is. And then somebody would say, well, then you're not a traditional witch. Who the fuck are you to say that? Yeah, they are. They're a traditional witch, just like you are. They're different, just like you are, but that doesn't mean that you own that term, traditional witch. That's such a Eurocentric, especially when it just promotes that one particular type of witchcraft from one particular part of the world and totally dismisses all the other traditional forms of witchcraft, whether it's Norwegian witchcraft or look at the, Hungarian witchcraft, Ukrainian witchcraft. There's all kinds of traditional forms of witchcraft out there. It's not just the British Isles. So for me, as a person of color, I wanted to address that. But primarily, I wanted to address this whole thing with regards to curses and hexes. Because I find in the magical community, people that are not and have not grown up in a culture that has always used magic and witchcraft, tend to have a very Eurocentric point of view, and then they tend to be Caucasian by saying, yeah, the odds are somebody actually deliberately sending you something like this, like bad magic or a curse or a hex, is really slim to none. Oh my gosh, you're doing people such a disservice when you say that, and you could potentially, really be misinforming people. And it's like I said, I'm not trying to fearmonger, but it's such a Eurocentric point of view. You are totally being dismissive. And maybe you were fortunate enough to not have to grow up with curses or hexes or bad medicine flying around. And maybe you've never had to experience that. Maybe you got to grow up in a little middle class, white, Caucasian, Christian town, and you never had to deal with that your whole life. And so to you, it's something that's so far out there and so far remote from your own world that you don't even realize that even in the same little city or town that you live in, that, yeah, that stuff could be flying back and forth and you have no clue because you are so unaware, right? So that's just what I wanted to say. It's a little bit of a rant, just kind of that Eurocentric point of view. And even with the terminology, like traditional witchcraft, when people say that they identify as that or that's what their magical practice is, it's such a blanketed statement, and it tends to be, always in reference to the British Isles, and that is not correct, because it totally dismisses various other forms of traditional witchcraft that are found in all around the world, in different cultures, different races, and a lot of people of color are being excluded from using that term, because if we use it, then there's that automatic assumption that, oh, well, you don't use a stang, or you don't tread the mill, or whatever the hell it is. And it's like, hey, and it's not an attack on somebody that follows that, but it's like, please be mindful that when you use a term like that, you are promoting that blanketed form of, I don't even know how to word this, but you are really promoting the Eurocentric point of view within the magical community, and you are really excluding people of color that may also consider themselves to be traditional witches, that use traditional witchcraft within their own cultural context or what have you. And it's such a big problem because it's so widely accepted. It's so widely accepted. You could look at books from the 90s and 2000s, and even now when they talk about traditional witchcraft, it always refers back to typically the British Isles. And it's like, oh, what about traditional African witchcraft? What about, you know, traditional Hispanic forms of witchcraft? What about traditional Native American witchcraft? What about traditional Chinese witchcraft? What about all these other groups of people? Why are we being excluded from using that term? And if we use it, somebody will say, well, no, that's not what I mean. Like, I mean like the real traditional witchcraft. And it's like, fuck off with that. You don't own that term. That term could apply to all of us. But there's already within the pagan community, within the magical community, we've all become really complacent and all become really accepting that when we hear the term traditional witchcraft, we don't think about traditional African witchcraft or traditional First Nations witchcraft or traditional whatever kind of witchcraft. What do we've been programmed now for generations already, like at least back to the 60s for sure, 50s, to think of traditional witchcraft as being what? From where? Right? So many books, traditional witchcraft, but where does it focus it on? The British Isles. Well, guess what? That is Eurocentric point of view. That's very Eurocentric right there. It should be all-encompassing, because when you don't include the rest of us, you are excluding us, and you are making it a very Eurocentric practice, whether you realize it or not. So yes, in some aspects, terminology, like I said, there's certain words I use that are interchangeable, but in some aspects, damn it, we gotta get it right. And I'm not about cancel culture and all that kind of stuff, but you have no idea how you are really promoting that exclusion to other magical practitioners, whether it's about curses, hexes, stuff like that. It's like you don't even realize the damage you are causing. So I'm hoping people will be more mindful and to be more inclusive to everyone, and to really maybe stop and think before they spout certain things like that. I know I went off on a tangent and I'm ranting and raving at this point. And you know what? It's what, 28 minutes and 20 some seconds. If you even made it to this point in the video, please, please comment down below. Say witch's brew. It's on my cup. Say witch's brew, so I know you actually watch this whole video. And please share your thoughts with me. I want to open the door for discussion. It really irks me, because as a person of color, all my life I've had to deal with racism, systemic racism, different forms of prejudice. I've gotten racism directed to me from people in the Indigenous community as well as in the non-Indigenous. I've got it from all sides, you know, because my dad was white, you know, and all this stuff. And, you know, I've always had a foot in two different worlds, and I've always had to make my own way, because while I'm a part of both worlds, it's like I don't belong to either world. And I've had to deal with people making comments and innuendos, and then when I say something, I've always had somebody who's always been Caucasian tell me, no, that's not what they meant. That's not what they meant. They still said it. It's not right. It's not right. It needs to be corrected. Now, you're kind of overreacting. I had one boss pure Caucasian, and I worked with this other lady who is also Caucasian, and I show up, I'm the only person of color working there, who also happened to have Indigenous blood. And you know, all of a sudden my boss is like, come back to my office, we're gonna have a little powwow. And she would say that all the time when she wanted to have a meeting. Let's have a powwow, let's have a powwow. And she would kind of look at me when she'd say it. And the first couple times I was like, are you kidding me? You kidding me? And then I'm new. These other people have been there for years, right? And so then I said to my coworker, who was also Caucasian, I was like, why is she still saying that? Like this, like, why does she say that? Like, does she not like Indigenous people? Is she deliberately trying to take jabs at me? Like, am I misreading something? And then it was like, you're just taking it too personal. Like, it's just a meeting. That's all she means, is just a meeting. Like, I don't see what the problem is. Well, here's what the problem is. Initially, powwows were ceremonies. And it's like, oh, so we're gonna go have a ceremony in your office now? Okay, should I bring the sweetgrass and the sage? Shall we all smudge before we start? Like, I don't think that's appropriate. Like, you know, it's just, it's rude, you know, and it's like throwing something, I don't know. It was just rude. But then to be, you know, kind of patted on the back and told like, now, like, that's not what she meant. That kind of freaking frustration and that kind of feeling of being dismissed and like overruled, that power over kind of feeling in that situation is what it's like in the magical community when you're a person of a color and your practices, your cultural, your community's practices are being kind of dismissed as, you know, not even being relevant or real or included, whether it's being considered like traditional witchcraft, whether it's about curses or hexes. It's really exclusionary, and it's that power over move. And a lot of people don't even realize that they are perpetuating that Eurocentric view, and that's happening within our magical community. I haven't seen anybody else step up and address it or try to talk about it. I might get a lot of backlash for this, and I'm sorry if it offends people. That's not my intention. I don't want to create division, because there's already division within our community. I do want to unify people. I do want to bring people together so that we can talk about this and have really respectful conversations with one another and really listen to folks when they do have these kind of concerns, because it's not right. And I'm not talking about fair. I'm talking about it being not right. And this is coming from a person of color, and I need to bring this out to the open. And like I said, it might create backlash, and that was never my intention. But I do want to open up discussion for this because it hurts. It hurts communities, and it hurts so many magical practitioners, even if we don't realize it, because we get it's so ingrained in everything. It's ingrained in our magical books. It's ingrained in our videos. It's so deeply ingrained within our community to be so accepting of this and not to even question it, because white is right, right? And when you are a person of color, that's something we all know what that means, because we've all experienced white is right. And there is that white privilege that goes with that what you say is the authority. Just like when I was trying to talk about, you know, hey, I don't appreciate my boss saying the powwow thing. It was another white coworker exhibiting that power over move, saying, no, that's not what they mean. They just mean a meeting. Like, you just need to get over it. You're being too sensitive. You know, it's that, okay, well, I guess white is right, you know, and That's not healthy. And it's 2022, and we need to move beyond this really deeply ingrained Eurocentric view within our magical communities with regards to curses and hexes, and even that terminology like traditional witchcraft. We all need to be more aware, and we need to take conscious and active steps to not be exclusionary towards other folks. And that includes with our definitions, and like people in the craft, in the community, we need people to step up and go, you know what, I never thought of it that way before. Unfortunately, I've been part of that system. It's so systemic within the craft. Yeah, I get it now, and I'll do what I can to not be like that, or to spread awareness. Like, we need more awareness in the craft community. So that is my long 36-minute rambling video. I'm probably going to lose subscribers. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And I'm being real and honest with you guys. And I need to put this out there because it needs to stop. We need to have more awareness in our communities. Okay. I love you guys. I hope you guys are safe, and I hope you guys stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Ciao.